Hi, Russ here, Russ Busey Music. Thanks for joining us, guys. So today we're going to talk about something that, especially guitar-wise, a lot of you guys probably already use, which are the pentatonic scale. You know, it's easy to learn the patterns of the pentatonic scale. Of course, they call it a pentatonic scale because it's got 5 notes in it, okay? Keep in mind that most songs are written around a major or a minor. And then in blues, which a lot of us, we like blues as guitar players because it's fun and we get to improvise over blues, but the chord changes aren't so complicated that we can't find our way, right? But what we end up doing a lot of times is using sort of one part of the pentatonic scale. In a song that's minor, it's fine to use a minor pentatonic. So if I'm playing, you know, this is an A minor chord. So if I'm using an A minor, everybody knows we all learn that, you know, and then the other patterns of it. Now, that scale is A, C, D, E, and G. That means anywhere on the neck that you play A, C, D, E, and G, you're playing the A minor pentatonic scale. It lends itself to nice patterns on the necks, so we call those boxes a lot of times, right? So that's a couple of boxes of the pentatonic scale. I went from like this one kind of through this one and this one, okay? Now, in a song that's minor, that's where you have to be. You have to play that, either the minor scale that fits the key to it or the pentatonic minor scale. Now, we use a lot of pentatonic scales because, especially in rock songs where we're using, I'll get into that more later, but when we're using harmony that's a little more complicated, you know, it changes keys and that kind of stuff, a natural minor scale might have some of the wrong notes in it. The pentatonic scale is a more limited skeletal sort of scale, so we end up playing a lot of pentatonic scales, especially when we're first learning. Funny thing about pentatonic scales, though, are you use them early on because you almost need to. You use them later on because of what they leave out and how interesting you can make them. Now, the next thing would be a song that's kind of a major kind of thing. In that case, as long as it's not playing the third of the chord, instead of sounding like that, like these power chords like we play in rock, we can still use that minor pentatonic scale. When we get into the blues, that's the chord that we use here, okay? Now that chord is an A7 chord. I can use the A minor pentatonic scale over that. That sounds like this. Sounds just fine, right? So that sounds like the blues. The thing that I think sometimes we don't do, though, is we realize that since that chord has a major third in it, and we're playing a minor pentatonic scale, and there's some theoretical reasons for that, I'll write an article about that and put it on Russ Busey Music, the website. But it gets a lot more complicated theoretically, but there's a major third in it. So suffice to say, the A, C, D, E, and G, which is the minor pentatonic scale, we could also use the major pentatonic scale because that chord has a major third in it. I'm going to let you hear what that sounds like. That's a major pentatonic scale. Now, the spelling of that is A, B, C sharp, E, F sharp. So it has a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, and a 6 in it. Now, that is a lot of times what you'll see on this, especially on something like this that's more of a major thing, is we'll go back and play it as if it were, say, the F sharp minor, which is the relative minor to A. So then you hear that, right? So you know that sound, but you're used to playing it in the same pattern as this. The way I think that pentatonic scale, and I'll just kind of jam around. So I'm going to play this kind of A7 sort of thing, and I'm going to go back and forth. Listen for when you hear that or this. That is a 6, right? Or in this case, it's a 13 because it's a couple of octaves away, but it's a 6. This is a minor third, major third. Second, minor third. So I'm just going to kind of toggle back and forth between those two. At first, I'll stay more in the minor. So now I'm going to kind of morph them in. Okay, so you can hear some of that major sound in there. You notice it swings a little bit more. Kind of the old adage, you got a 6 in there, it swings a little bit more. So the idea for a lot of guitar players are, how do I break out of that same lick that I'm always going to play in there? Well, one of the ways that you do it is you have to be comfortable in that next pattern and how the paw print of that pattern fits over the same kind of thing. We go where we're comfortable. So what you do is you got to get comfortable with the major pentatonic and then make yourself playing it for a while until you're comfortable. I'm not saying abandon the minor. I'm saying when you're practicing, not so much when you're jamming with your friends or playing a show or anything like that, or, we're going out to an open stage. But when you're at home, you can lay down a loop like this. And all that is an A chord coming off that loop. Now, I'm only going to play the major. Okay, so in that case, I'm just using the major. Now, if you're not used to doing that, make yourself do that until you have enough licks and that kind of stuff to do it. But where it really gets comfortable is when you can go back and forth between major and minor over a blues progression. Now, you can do it right here at the 5th fret, but obviously the most effective way to do it is because there's 5 notes in there and they are effectively the same shape. So if I'm playing A minor pentatonic, I'm playing C major pentatonic, okay? It's the same exact thing because that's your relative minor. If I'm playing A major pentatonic, then I'm playing F sharp minor pentatonic. The nice thing about those two things are there's still only 5 shapes of all of that. There's still the 5 boxes, and there's a million places online where you can go find the 5 pentatonic boxes. Now, keep in mind, we're not talking about the blues scale where they add a flat 5 and and maybe some chromatic notes. What we're really talking about here is a 5-note scale. And the patterns, the blues, that becomes something that sort of becomes innate in you once you start learning how to use them. But I think, so number one, you need to get to the point where you're using pentatonic scales, memorizing where each of those patterns go. The mature guitarist can go from so I used all of the patterns there together. Same thing up in the major. Okay, so those are what you want to do. Then you kind of find out where your chord tones on them are. Now, an A7 chord is an A, a C sharp, an E, and a G. Well, some of those notes reside in the minor pentatonic, some of them reside in the major pentatonic. The other thing that makes this powerful, and the reason we call it powerful pentatonic scales are, learn to not always end on an A or start on an A. There's 4 notes in that chord. So I can come in on the 3rd. That's a lick where I went 3rd, 5th, 6th into 7, which is part of the chord. And that's your 3rd again, and this was a 7 again. So that's what you kind of want to get to the point where you don't always start and stop your licks on the root note, okay? Now, using these over a whole blues progression, you still get to go back and forth because an A blues song is still basically in the key of A major. So that major pentatonic scale is still very usable in a 12-bar blues over a 1-4-5 progression. The The idea is use the minor where it sounds good, use the major where it sounds good. So again, I think how you start doing this is you really learn all the positions of the minor pentatonic scale. For you guys who already know that, that's fine. Then move it the 3 frets that you need to make it the major pentatonic scale. And if that doesn't make sense to you, I'll try to this is really more designed for people who understand that part of it, because a lot of you guys that are going to be watching this video have been playing for long enough that you know that information, but you're trying to figure out how to get into that information. So know your positions of the pentatonic scale first. Then know the notes of your chord. And you've heard of the cage system, which is, you know, the C shape, an A shape, a G shape, an E shape, and a D shape. Well, those patterns all sit where they are. Like this is an A chord, but it's the E shape of the A chord, as you can see. And so on and so forth. So the A shape of an A chord looks like that. The G shape of an A chord looks like that. Well, that kind of corresponds to that. The E shape, right? So the D shape. So all of those and then of course the C shape, which that covers them all. C shape, A shape, G shape, E shape, D shape. That's your caged. All those boxes correspond to those positions on the neck. All those pentatonic boxes. So how you're going to do it first is learn those 5 boxes. Again, you can find those a million places on the internet, but learn those 5 boxes. That same 5 notes in 5 places. So if there's one that starts on A, there's one that starts on C, there's one that starts on D, one starts on E, and one starts on G. Right? Same thing with the boxes of the major. One starts on A, right? One starts on B, C sharp, E, and F sharp. So, I want you to have questions about this, and I'd like to answer your questions about this, but what I want you to do is learn those boxes and then force yourself to play major pentatonics over a blues. If you're playing a song, because I mean, let's be honest, most songs are either sitting on a minor key or a major key or a blues key. In most of the things we're going to be playing guitar. I mean, if you're playing, certain jazz type things and you're playing certain classical type things, then this is probably not applying to those as much. Although again, it's the same information. All of these 5-note scales come out of the 7-note scale, the major scale. So the issue is we had classical harmony that had all of this do re mi stuff in it, but it didn't make up for the different influences that came in when blues and jazz and country. I mean, country guitar playing, which is a lot of fun to do, it still uses pentatonic scales all the time. It leans a lot of times more major. So you can hear both sounds. I'm just kind of doing some hybrid picking, So I'm still using pentatonic scales. I'm just going right back and forth between them. So I'll play this out. So again, work on all of your positions and then work on going back and forth between the majors and minors. That's when this becomes a lot more powerful. Powerful means that you're not playing the same licks all the time. You have a wider vocabulary. Going back and forth between these is how you're going to get that wider vocabulary. So send me any questions in a link. I'll just kind of play us out.